Nobody has any problems on page 2 they want me to work. Okay, let's go to page 3 then. Okay, we'll start with 5, then we'll go to 10, then we'll go to 2, then we'll go to 8. Okay, so number 5. Before I do number 5 for you, I'm going to make up a different problem just for teaching purposes. So, everybody listen, I'm making this problem up out of thin air. It's nowhere on your paper, okay? Let's see, 2 equals r divided by 5. Say that you were given this problem. You're trying to solve for r, which means get it by itself, so what would you do? Correct. Currently, r is being divided by 5, so you're just going to multiply by 5 to cancel it, and whatever you do to one side, you do to the other, and that gives you r equals 10. So if that's so easy for you, why can you not do this one? Okay, because look, you're still going to do the same process. R divided by 18, so multiply by 18 on both sides to cancel it. And now you just have, instead of 2 whole numbers, you're just multiplying a whole number by a fraction. So let's remind ourselves how to type something like that in. 18 times negative 1/6. First type in the 18, then times. How do you set up to type in a fraction? Correct. Alpha, then y equals n over d. We'll make a fraction. And then you just type in negative 1 in the numerator, 6 in the denominator, and you get negative 3. Okay, now, some other problems that I've discovered today that students are having with this one is somebody said, well, it's 1/6 and the negative's out to the side, and they didn't know where to put the negative. Anytime the negative is in the middle like that, you can choose. It can either go on the 1 or the 6. Watch what would happen had I put it on the 6 instead of the 1. 18 times, I got to set up for a fraction. This time I'm going to put a positive 1 and then a negative 6. Same answer. So it doesn't matter where you put the negative, you get to choose. But you can only put it on one, not both, because think about it. There's only one negative sign, so it can't go on both. If you put it on both, it would make the whole fraction become positive. So you just choose which number you want it to go on. Normally, I just always put it with the numerator. So does everybody now see how to work number 5? Okay, let's move to number 10. Can I erase? All right, number 10. Negative 8, parenthesis, x plus 4, close parenthesis equals negative 96. Before we start trying to use inverse operations to move things away from the x, what should we do first? Okay. Negative 8 times x is negative 8x. Negative 8 times 4 is, and then that equals negative 96. Now we just have a two-step equation. So what's the first step going to be? Correct. Cancel out this 32 by adding 32, because that'll make a 0. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. And so now on the left, you have negative 8x, and on the right, you now have negative 64. And now to solve for x, what do? And so a positive 8, because a negative divided by a negative is positive. 64 over 8 is 8. Now, yesterday, I showed you a different way you could have done this one. Does anybody remember? Right. If you don't want to distribute the negative 8 through the problem, you could just go ahead and divide by negative 8. Because think about it. Isn't that negative 8 being multiplied by all of that? That's why you distributed. So the opposite of multiplication is division. You could just go and cancel that out by dividing it on both sides. And now you have x plus 4 equals a positive what? What's 96 over 8? 12. 96 divided by 8 is 12. And now wouldn't we just subtract 4 on both sides and get x equals 8? Which is what we got when we did it the other way. So you can work that problem either way. You can go ahead and distribute it, or you could just go ahead and divide by the number to begin with if you don't want to deal with distributing. Okay, number 2. Okay, this one is tricky because they really should have never wrote that problem like that, because it's not it's not simplified. We don't ever write two signs back to back. Okay, if you have two signs back to back like that and they're opposites of each other, then you can just change it to a minus. If they're the same, like they're both positive, then you would just change it to one positive. If they're the same but they're both negative, then you would make it a positive. Okay, so if the signs that are back to back are the same sign, then you'll just change it to one big plus sign in the middle. If they're opposites though, you change it to one big minus sign. So this problem could be rewritten as negative 35 equals k minus 26. Because a plus and negative is the same thing as minus. Yes, you'll still get the same answer, because now you would just add this 26, and so k will equal whatever negative 35 plus 26 is, which is negative 9 though, right? Because you're adding back to it, but not enough to get back to 0 and go into the positives. Okay, after that, what was the next one? Number 8? Okay, number 8. The left side, there's nothing we can do. All we have is a constant value. On the right side, in a minute, what could we do on the right side? Distribute. Do we distribute the negative 7 to the negative 5 in, the negative 2, and the 6 in? No. Only the stuff that's inside parentheses. When you distribute that negative 7, what does this become? Then plus 14. And then bring down the plus 6 in. Now, any ideas? Right. Now, before we start moving stuff to the opposite side, 35 in and 6 in are both just in. So we can go and combine those, and they make 41 in on that side. Now we have a two-step equation, so what is your first step going to be? Correct, because we need to move that constant with that constant. And now how many constant values do we have? Right. And then that equals 41 in. And now to get n by itself, how do you remove that 41? Divide by 41, and you get 4. Okay, now let me show you how you could even type in something like this to check it. Hurry. Guys, don't forget that you only have so many passes, so some of you are running out quickly after Christmas. Okay. So watch, I'm going to type it in. I'm not going to type in that. I'm going to type in all of this. So I have a negative 7, and then parenthesis, negative 5. Right here above the 8 is open parenthesis, above the 9 is closed. Now, anytime you're substituting a number in the place of a variable, like I'm about to put a number in for n, I put parentheses around it. So where the n is, I'm about to insert a 4, and see how I put parentheses around that 4? You always need to do that. Then continue, minus 2, then close your parentheses, and then plus 6, n. I'm about to insert a 4 again, so I'm going to put parentheses around that 4, and look what I get. 178, because I'm putting the 4 in the n places. And anytime you input a number in for a variable, you need to put parentheses around the number. And see how I got 178? And that's what it says it equals? That's how you know 4 is the right number, because it made it equal 178. Okay, other questions off this page? I don't know. Okay, any other questions? Okay, let's move on then. We're going to skip page 4. Let's go to page 5. All right, Carlos solved the following equations but was having some trouble. In each of the following problems, Carlos made a mistake. See if you can help Carlos fix his mistakes. So we need to examine the problem. When we find a mistake, we're going to circle it. Then in the space provided, we're going to explain in words what the mistake is, and then we're going to solve the problem correctly. Okay, so his problem that he's solving is negative 6t equals 30. What did he do first? Correct. He divided, which was correct, but he should have divided by the exact same number, which was a negative 6. So there's his mistake. He should have divided by a negative 6. Okay, so now let's do it correctly. We're going to divide by negative 6, which on the left will cancel out because any number divided by itself is 1. And you can write 1 there, but it's understood. It's not necessary. And when we divide the 30 by negative 6, the real answer is negative 5. Now, see how Carlos could have figured out that he had the wrong answer? If he'd have taken the original equation and in the t place inserted his answer of 5, what is negative 6 times 5? Negative 30. And it says it equals positive 30. So that's how he would have known he got it wrong, because he was looking for a positive 30 and that would have made a negative 30. Okay? You can look around. You can look around, but I didn't see one. Okay, now let's look at number 3. First, I'm going to read. Yeah, we're skipping. We're doing the odds together. 8 minus 5c. I don't think you left it in here. Equals negative 37. Okay, if you were working this problem, what would you do first? Correct. And isn't that what he did? Okay, so that's okay so far. And then after you subtracted 8 on both sides, what would you do? We're doing the odds together. Okay, those would cancel. And then what would you write? Okay, this equals negative 45. And what would you write on this side? What did he do? He wrote a positive 5c. He forgot to bring that negative sign down with it. And so there's his mistake, because then this would have been negative, that would have been negative, and that would have been negative. So now we'll write what he did wrong. He forgot to bring down the negative sign on 5c. And so now we're going to finish it for him. We're going to divide by negative 5 on both sides. And so the real answer is c equals positive 9. Okay, watch what would happen had he plugged in negative 9. What's a negative 9 times a negative 5? Positive 45. And is 8 plus 45 going to give you a negative 37? No. Okay, but if you plug in a positive 9 right here, that becomes a negative 45 when you multiply, and 8 minus 45 will give you a negative 37. Okay, number 5. The question is 4x minus 3 equals 17. So if you were working that problem, what would you do first? Correct. It's already subtracting 3, so you need to do the opposite and add 3. Is that what he did? Yes. Then what would you write? Okay, you would bring down the 4x, and on the right, they combine to a 20. Is that what he did? Yes, so he's doing okay so far. But then what would you do? Divide by 4, because 4 is being multiplied by x, and the inverse operation of multiplication is division, and so we would have got a 5, and what did he do? He subtracted 4 on both sides, which is not the inverse of multiplication. So he subtracted 4 instead of dividing. Okay, once you copy that, you can go ahead and turn to page 6. Everybody's got that copied? Okay, let me get rid of all that. Number 7. The original question is 3x plus 2x minus 6 equals 24. If you were working that problem, what would you do first? Okay, what are the like terms? And so that makes a 5x on this side. What did he do? Correct. He started trying to do inverse operations, but he did them on the same side. Remember, when doing inverse operations, you do one on one side and one on the other. Okay? So this was completely wrong. Okay? Because not only did he not need to subtract the 2x, because he could have just added it to the 3x, he did it twice on the same side, which is never okay to do. So you can write, he should have added 3x plus 2x to get 5x. Okay, so now that we did that, what do we do next? Correct, because we want to cancel out that to 0. And then you add 6 on this side, and now you have 5x equals 30. And now what do you do? And so x equals 6. And it'll work, because look, if you plug it in, this one, 5 times 6 is 30. 30 minus 6 is 24. Or you could have plugged it in this one. 3 times 6 is 18. 2 times 6 is 12. 18 plus 12 is 30. And 30 minus 6 is 24. All right, number 9. Has everybody finished copying? The original question is negative 2, parenthesis, x minus 2, parenthesis, equals 14. So if you were working that problem, what would you do first? Distribute. Okay, and when you do, what would it become? Okay, what did he do? Right, he distributed, but right here he put a minus 4 when that should have been a plus 4. And then that messed up the rest of his problem, because at that point he shouldn't be adding anymore, he should have been subtracting, right? So he distributed incorrectly. Negative 2 times negative 2 equals positive 4. Okay, so now that we distributed it correctly, now what would we do? Subtract 4. And so now negative 2x equals what? And then what would you do? And so x equals negative 5. Okay, now on your pink sheet, the next block down, you're going to write today's date, and you need to finish up pages 4, 5, and 6. At the end of class, I will do a question and answer time in case there's any that you want to go over, but we still have 15 minutes, so you should be able to get a lot of that done in here if you're working.